Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dr. Quack podcast. I'm Dr. Quack, and of course,
I am the important one, Mr. Mayhem, the real host of this show.
oh, you hear this, right? Yeah.
He even knows it.
Oh, but we're in for a surprise today.
What did you do?
Oh.
What have you done now?
Oh.
Besides kill a bunch of patients because you didn't show up, what other damage have you done today?
Oh, I have actually got something in store for you. We're going to do a classic pay-per-view review.
Classic?
Take
You're
a
not
look right there.
Folks, he told me to come over to his house and watch this show. I didn't realize this was going to become an episode on the Dr. Quack podcast. You ought to be sued for libel for this.
Welcome to WrestleMania!
Whoa, whoa, whoa there, Mean Gene. Slow down a second there.
But make sure you call my hotline.
Yeah, you can learn the latest things like how Dr. Quack is being sued because he killed a patient. My patients.
I'm not a crook. But, yeah, so we actually sat down here and we watched WrestleMania, as, two grown men. But, take the viewers back here, because I'm sure some of them are actually, some of them may not be old enough to watch this. What was it like for you as a kid watching WrestleMania? How big was that for you?
WrestleMania was actually really a big deal. It wasn't the first ever pay-per-view, although the current WWE administration would like you to believe that. There was the Wrestling Challenge or the Wrestling Tournament thing that was a pay-per-view before that. The Wrestling Classic, I think it was called.
Yeah, the big classic.
Yeah, that thing was horrible, and I think the NWA had a couple of closed circuit kind of things before that with their Starrcade, but this was the first national big event, big deal. And it was 1985, if I do remember my years right. It's been a few years, but I think it was 1985.
That it was.
So I'm going to steal the line here, and let's take a look at what we got coming up first. Give it to us.
So the opening match here was the Executioner against Tito Santana.
Oh, poor Playboy Buddy Rose. I know there's a lot of controversy. Was that Playboy Buddy Rose or was that Terry Gordy? I think it was Buddy Rose. Terry Gordy had sandy brown curly hair. Playboy Buddy Rose had the bleach blonde look.
Yeah.
So I think that was Playboy Buddy Rose.
I'm almost certain I'm agreeing on that. The match lasted 5 minutes. Tito won with a figure 4 leg lock.
Yeah, before he started realizing the flying forearm looked better.
Yes. I mean, it wasn't bad, though. His figure 4 was pretty good.
It was decent.
What would you rate that match?
Well,
we're using the Meltzer scale, by the way, going 5 stars.
Fair enough, fair enough. So, the Executioner, Buddy Rose, for those of you that didn't know, I'm a big devotee of Pacific Northwest Wrestling from the 70s and 80s, and Playboy Buddy Rose was a big deal in the Pacific Northwest. If it was Buddy Rose under the hood, which there is some controversy of who it was supposed to be, if it was Buddy Rose, that was horrible. I think the mask didn't fit him right. He looked way out of his element, whether he was, hey, here, throw this on, kid, or whatever, but he didn't look very good. Tito did okay. I think this was the start of his WrestleMania curse. He's like 2-7 or something like that. So all in all, I gave it a 2-star on the Meltzer scale.
2-star. Yeah, I was pretty close to that. The match, what we're used to nowadays is a very solid opener in pay-per-views, and this was not up to that hype. I gave it a 1.5. I felt like it had its notoriety to do it, but yeah, Buddy Rose. Yeah, we both think this, but yeah, he did not look good under the hood.
Nope. And we're going to come to the kayfabe word of the day, the curtain jerk. It has changed definitions over the years. Originally, the lowest match on the card was called the curtain jerk, or because you jerked the curtain open first. Now the curtain jerk is an actual match of honor. As you're saying, a lot of what would be known as the semi-main event or the number 2 match is now your opening match. So this was prior to that definition.
Yeah.
What do we got next, Monsoon?
That's right. So we've got, here was the all-time classic here. King Kong Bundy with Jimmy Hart taking on SD Jones. Bundy winning in the record-setting 9 seconds.
15 seconds if you actually put a camera to bell.
That it was.
It was not 9 seconds. It was the first example for those people who were old enough to understand that wrestling was a work. They didn't tell the truth. You know, 93,173 in the Pontiac Silverdome that didn't hold 93,000 people. That was the one that's most known, but the 9-second Bundy was actually 15.
Yeah, and he squashed him. I mean, it was, you know, a quick in and out match. I always like to call these the bathroom break matches.
You didn't have enough time to go to the bathroom.
You did not.
You got your pants undone, and all of a sudden, you ding, ding, ding. But I gave the match 2 stars because it did put Bundy, start him down the path, getting ready for WrestleMania 2.
Yeah, and I basically agree with that. I mean, it really did lead the path for him. And notice, after that, he left Jimmy Hart and went to Bobby Heenan.
Yes, he did. But Jimmy Hart was inundated, and Heenan was fairly new to the management side at that time. You know, he'd made his transition over from the AWA. They didn't really know what to do with him, so he kind of started doing it for himself.
There you go. So the next matchup we got here, Matt Bourne versus Ricky Steamboat.
A pre-Doink the Clown Matt Bourne, a pre-Big Josh, a pre-good hairstyle Matt Bourne going against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Very old school match. Very old school. I was a little more generous. I gave it 2.5 stars.
Yeah, I mean, Steamboat hit the flying cross body there. Took it out 10 minute, went about. It was a solid match. I gave it 3 stars myself. I mean, I felt like, okay, this kept me interested. Made me want to watch the rest of the card.
The only reason I gave it a 2.5 star is looking at it from the hindsight of having been in the business as long as I have, and from today's standpoint, that was not a match that should have been put on a pay-per-view. That was a great television match. That would have not been a great, I paid extra money to see this match.
Totally agree. Yeah. Here we go. David Sammartino with Bruno Sammartino versus Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Was not the barber at this time, by the way, with luscious Johnny V.
Yeah, he was the ladies' man. That's why they called him Brutus Beefcake. Ouch. I gave this match 2 ratings. And honestly, I cared so little, I don't even remember who won. I think Beefcake won.
No, it was actually a double disqualification.
That's how little I cared about it. Okay, the action for the first 7/8 of the match, I give it a 1 star. David Sammartino was not. He falls into the same vein as Eric Watts, David Flair, guys who had a name and couldn't use it. David Sammartino was definitely on that list. He's almost Scott Putski level.
Scott Putski.
Almost. Scott Putski gets points because he slept with Missy Hyatt, so he already wins a point.
He gets a point there. So what about the other 1/8 of that match?
That was a 2.5 to 3 star extracurricular buildup. I don't think they did anything with it, but there was a lot of extra that all of a sudden was like, hey, wait a minute, this is kind of interesting going on here. Let me see what they're doing. So if they could have made the whole match that way and cut it down to about 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes, it'd have been a 2 to 2.5 star match, but the match itself was just a 1 star match.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big sentiment there. I mean, when you had the 2 managers, they just went against each other at the end. I felt that raised the match value. I mean, the match was nothing to brag home to mama about. But yeah, I gave it a 2.5.
Alrighty.
So here's a big one here. Greg the Hammer Valentine with Jimmy Hart taking on the Junkyard Dog for the Intercontinental title.
Greg Valentine, very, very underrated, somebody who never got the recognition he really should have deserved in the WWE, because he was so well known in the old NWA. His dog collar match with Roddy Piper was incredible.
Yeah, that was A+.
His matches for the Missouri title with Harley Race, incredible.
Yeah.
He came to the WWF. He was a little older, so they kind of made him out to be a carpenter, a journeyman trying to, carry people along, and he just never really flourished in that role. But he did well as the IC champion. Really put it on the map instead of the Buenos Aires title run. Mm-hmm. And I gave the match a 3-star.
Yeah, I mean, Junkyard Dog got pinned. For those of you who haven't watched this, if you haven't, check out the network, by the way, WrestleMania. He got pinned for a 3 count, and of course Tito Santana came out there and told the referee, and they wanted to restart the match, and he ended up walking away and getting counted out. So JYD won by count out there. Overall, that match was huge. The lead up to it, the promos that the Hammer cut on him, that led to a lot of this. I gave it a 3.5 star.
Yes, that was another thing. Greg Valentine was very underrated at talking because the WWF didn't like to have him talk because he talked like this. They didn't want to hear that he really spoke eloquently and told a good story.
Yeah, he was very solid on that. So here we go. Moving on down the line, tag team titles here. The Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov, Classy Freddie Blassie, taking on Barry Windham, Mike Rotunda with Captain Blue Alabama.
I use it. Never mind, I won't do that. I really enjoyed this match. I was never a fan of I think they were called the U.S. Express. I don't remember, but it was pre-Blackjacks, Mulligan, Barry Windham,
Yeah.
and it was pre-IRS, Mike Rotunda, pre-Captain, they were a decent talent. They were just fairly green for a national circuit. So the Sheik and Volkov winning was the right call, and it led to a really good set of matches with them down the road. I think Bulldogs took the titles off of them, or was it the Hart Foundation that took it off the Sheik and Volkov?
That was the Bulldogs.
So that led to a really good series of matches, and it really put how good Classy Freddie Blassie was. So I gave that a solid 3-star.
Yeah, I mean, Sheik and Volkov ended up going over in this one. Freddie Blassie threw in the cane. And that was classic heel manager back in the days, and Fred Blassie was known for that. I gave it a 3-star. I thought it was a very solid match, and it set the table. This is what I love about pay-per-views when you go to matches. It set the table to the main event to make you more excited. Next big match here. Andre the Giant, Big John Studd. Body Slam Challenge. Bobby Heenan in the corner.
Body Slam versus the Career.
Yes, the $15,000.
This match would have played a lot better. This match I think was ahead of its time because it would have played better now. Well, not so much now, but 30 years later. So 2012, 14, 15, the whole, where you could have the non-stop coverage of the training of how Big John Studd was fighting being slammed, how Andre was setting up, put some intrigue in, maybe seeing Andre the Giant looking at his career of where can I go next. They could have had some fun with that and made some compelling television. So as far as the storytelling aspect, this match was really ahead of its time, so it was not very good. So the match in itself was not very good. Andre was only about 6 years away, or 9 years away, 8 years away from death at this time. So his back was really starting to fail him at this point. I only gave it 1.5 stars. I mean, the story was sort of there, but it didn't have enough proper build-up.
See, I was just the opposite. I loved the match. The build-up to it, Andre always having the feud with the Heenan family in general, and Big John Studd because he always claimed to be the true giant. I really felt this was a really strong match. And I love the end where he was throwing the money out, and of course Heenan comes and grabs the bag and runs away with it before he threw out too much of it. I really gave it about 3 stars. That's what I was really thinking. I thought it was, a fairly decent match, and it was, solid as far as...
Well, and to be fair with your rating, that was a better example of a match that should have been on a pay-per-view than David San Martino Brutus Beefcake. At least that belonged where it was put. It belonged on that card.
It was a special attraction.
So to be fair, I see your rating there because it was appropriately placed to be on WrestleMania. That should not have been done on a television show.
Yeah, you want to see it on closed circuit or at a house show, it would make no sense.
Right.
So here you go. And back in the days, women were not broadcasted as much here. So this match was huge. Leilani Kai with Fabulous Moolah taking on Wendy Richter with Cyndi Lauper, the ladies' championship. Not the women's title, not the divas title, the ladies' championship.
Yes, the title that Moolah made famous because she was Moolah. We're not going to go into any of the controversies about what Moolah may or may not have done, so this is not where this is going. What we're talking about is women's wrestling in the 80s, folks, so please don't comment on us and destroy us because we're not talking about Fabulous Moolah here. Focus, the important one here. I'm all about non-controversy because I know what I'm talking about and I know I'm right.
Okay.
So now that we've got that caveat out of the way,
yeah,
the match was horrible. Leilani Kai and Wendy Richter had absolutely no chemistry together. They seemed like they tried to go the opposite direction at the same time. The moves were not crisp. The holds were not crisp. The timing was not there. That was barely 1 star.
See, and I rated it a little bit higher because I understood what they were trying to do. Because you had Cyndi Lauper, in the corner. You were trying to get the star power out there. You had legendary champion Fabulous Moolah on the other side. But it was kind of a big deal. The match wasn't great, but it wasn't, good. I give it 2 stars because of the star power of pretty much the 2 managers.
But they weren't used very well.
They weren't. The post interview was actually pretty good with Lauper and
the post interview, yes, was good, but we're talking about the match.
Yeah, this is true.
We're not talking about the whole segment here. We're talking about the match.
Very true.
And the match was awful. And even the star power didn't get used well enough.
I agree with that. The big main event, the war to settle the score. Hulk Hogan, Mr. T with Jimmy Superfly Snuka taking on Roddy Piper with Bob Orton, who was Paul Orndorff, excuse me, yeah.
All right.
With Bob Orton in the corner. Pat Patterson and Muhammad Ali as special guest referees.
Well, first of all, don't call his hotline because you see he got it wrong.
How'd I get it wrong?
You went, and Bob Orton, oh no, wait a minute, it was Bob
I botched it, man. Sorry, my notes. It happened.
All right, so Botchamania, you got 137 right there. But anyway, let's talk about this match. This match was very, very important from the WWF standpoint. They were the first ones to show that national mainstream celebrities can like wrestling, which was always seen as, well, very popular. Go back to the old Dumont Network and the Wrestling at the Chase, and the 60s when it was drawing 15, 20,000 people in suits at the show every week. Main talent, the national talents that were not wrestlers, were not known to be wrestling fans. It was seen as lowbrow or beneath them. And WrestleMania did change all that. And a big example is putting Muhammad Ali actually in the match. Not as a manager, actually in the match. And putting Mr. T in the match. Right in the action. So that was a big deal. And this match was very important, very well done. The only knock on the match I have was the ending scene, very rushed. It was, they were going, all of a sudden, oh wait, we've gone too long, let's kill him.
Yeah.
But I gave it a 3.5 star.
I can totally understand that. I mean, plus you had Liberace out there.
Yes, and there we go. I forgot about the 3 people on there that were supposed to be the timekeeper, and Billy Martin did the ring announcer. Yeah, Billy Martin was the guest ring announcer.
Yep.
Joan Hart was the timekeeper. Who was the timekeeper? Liberace was timekeeper.
Yeah, Liberace was timekeeper, and Billy Martin was the announcer. Yeah, they were there.
I thought they had one more. If not,
They might have. I cannot remember that. I don't have it in my notes.
Okay.
But, overall, I mean, the star power there, plus, Hogan, being at that point larger than life, everybody was really behind him. You know, I gave the match 4 stars. I really felt like that was the reason why you came to the show, and I think you left happy if you were a fan of wrestling at that point.
Yes, it was from the booking standpoint, from the when kayfabe still existed. This was a well-booked match for the main event, and it was the people got the crowd the reaction, and they got the finish they deserved. Excuse me, for this first show. Like I said, the finish seemed rushed, so I knocked half a star off, but it was a solid, good match, and Mr. T did not embarrass himself.
Definitely. I mean, it also led to Paul Orndorff's eventual babyface turn. I think this was the start of that, where he got crowned by Bob Orton in the head with that cast.
Yes.
You know, it helped, you know, really push that as well. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Dr. Quack Podcast. If you can, like, share, subscribe to this channel. Give me some likes on the YouTube channel. Trust me, it helps me out. I really would appreciate it.
I'm looking to get a bonus, so please do what he said. Like the channel. Otherwise, the ticket to Broadway is coming to see you.
Ooh, yeah, you heard that from the important one, Mr. Mayhem. I'm Dr. Quack, and I'm out.